2 months ago in August, I attended a continuing education conference specifically for priests in Atlanta, Georgia. And every so often there are these continuing ed opportunities for priests and bishops, which is good because we stay refreshed in what we're teaching and preaching. And so every time I attend one of those things, I try to bring back something for you. I try to bring back something for the parishioners of whichever parish I'm assigned. Last month in September, I was on retreat, the annual priest retreat, and I took more notes on that retreat than I have in probably all the other retreats I've been on combined, because the speaker was so good, the retreat master was so good. So eventually I'll share with you what I learned on priest retreat, but this time it's for the convocation that we had 2 months ago in Atlanta. And the speaker was also very good. I took notes. The best talk he gave was on the third day. It was on, so we were there Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, so Wednesday morning. And what he told us was this. The topic of this particular talk was what the pastor is in the mind and heart of Pope Francis. So based on Pope Francis' teachings and writings and homilies and talks, this priest who was giving us this convocation wrote down 10 characteristics that he's noticed that what the pastor is in the mind and heart of Pope Francis. However, I believe that what's good for a good pastor is also good for a good parishioner. That what's good, the things that a good pastor ought to be doing, is also very appropriate for what a good parishioner ought to be doing, and characteristics in the spiritual life of a good parishioner, which is why I try to go to as many of these continuing ed conferences and retreats and bring back something for you, because it's not only benefits me, but hopefully it benefits you. And so there's a list of 10 items here that what the pastor is in the mind and heart of Pope Francis, but you could easily say what the parishioner is in the mind and heart of Pope Francis. So I'll get right to it. I can see you're sitting on the edge of your seat. Get to it already. Normally I wouldn't just go through 10 things, right? Because if a preacher preaches 10 things, how many things do you remember? None, right? So I'm going to have these printed. I'm going to either have these printed in next week's bulletin, so you don't have to try to take notes today or try to remember all of them. If something sticks, it's like throwing spaghetti on the wall, right? If something sticks, run with that. But just know that I'll have all 10 either printed in the bulletin next weekend or somehow on our parish website or something, so that you'll have access to all 10. Okay, Father Mark, get to it. Get to it. What are the 10? The first one, the strength of the priest depends on his relationship with Christ. He should seek Christ in his daily life. That's great for a priest, but don't you get the sense that it also applies to you, right? The strength of the parishioner depends on his or her relationship with Christ and to seek Christ in his or her daily life. See how it translates? It translates very easily to not just for me, but it's for everybody. So the speaker gave this example. How does the day end? With TV or with God? The strength of the priest, pastor, parishioner depends on his relationship with Christ and to seek God in daily life. How does the day end? With TV or with God? Second one. A pastor should be close to the people he serves as he is close to Christ. Go out and meet the sheep and know their names I've been trying to learn everybody's names. I haven't gotten to everybody, but I know quite many of our parishioners. But that's good for parishioners as well. Immediately following Mass, we have the Knights of Columbus bacon breakfast. They'll be serving bacon. And they'll have a side of pancakes and eggs and all of that. But while we're down there, isn't that a great opportunity to learn other people's names? It's a great opportunity. We want to be a welcoming community, an open, welcoming community. One way we can do that is introduce ourselves at things like the pancake breakfast, a bacon breakfast. After Mass, And so I hope everybody will go right downstairs and then introduce yourself to somebody that you don't know. But the pastor and parishioner should be close to the people he serves as he is close to Christ. The priest ought to be predominantly a minister of God's mercy. God never tires of being merciful to us. The parishioner ought to primarily be a minister of God's mercy. God never tires of being merciful to us. As God has been merciful to us, so we can hand that on and be merciful to the people who have offended us and to the people that we meet. Again, there's that reciprocal application. It's for the priest as well as for the people. Be merciful. This is another one. The priest is called to simplicity of life. And the speaker at the conference in Atlanta gave the Pope as an example of simplicity of life. He said, the Pope uses public transportation, not a limousine, right? He has a small apartment. He cooks for himself, meaning he doesn't have a housekeeper, and drives a Ford Focus. I drive a Ford Focus. So I don't know if he heard about me and then said, oh, that's the car for me, and got one himself. I love public transportation. I would rather take public transportation than my Ford Focus. I cook for myself. There's no housekeeper. Many people are surprised to find out, our priest does not have a housekeeper or cook, because so many parishes up north have one. No, there ain't one here. I cook for myself. The Pope lives in a small apartment instead of a palatial palace. So there it is, called to simplicity of life, but all of us can be called to simplicity of life. The priest ought to be a model of integrity instead of given to clericalism. Model of integrity instead of clericalism or a climber. Well, I don't believe that I have any integrity, but I don't believe I'm given to clericalism. Clericalism is where the pastor puts himself on a pedestal and insists that you kiss his ring, right? Do you think, am I clerical? Do you have the sense that I'm a cleric, insist that you put me on a pedestal? No, or kiss my ring? No, it's a very small ring, as a matter of fact. I hope not. If you think that I am given to clericalism, please let me know, because that's something I want to correct in myself. If you have that sense that I'm putting myself in a pedestal and insist that you do the same for me. And I am not a climber. The very last thing I want to be is named Bishop of Raleigh. That's the very last thing. So no, I'll tell you, I'm not a climber. I hope he just leaves me here, right? But the speaker at this Atlanta conference mentioned a phrase that I had never heard of before, clericalism of the laity. Clericalism of the laity, meaning what he explained was that the lay faithful, the parishioners, do not fulfill their baptismal responsibility of service to others. Well, that does not apply to us. I don't get the sense at all that we are given to clericalism of the laity with as much outreach and service to the poor and those in need that we do here continually, every week, if not every day. But so model of integrity instead of clericalism and a climber. The priest should be a source of blessing for the people. The grace of ordination should flow through the priest to the people. And he used the example of the oil of gladness so as to anoint others with gladness. At the sacrament of holy orders, the priest's hands are anointed with oil. And the speaker was making reference to that. Oil of gladness should flow through the priest to the people. And so the priest should be a source of blessing for the people. But that applies for everybody who's not ordained as well, anybody who's confirmed in the Catholic Church. All of us who have received the sacrament of confirmation in the Catholic Church have also received the oil of gladness. The bishop traced the sign of the cross with the blessed oil on our forehead. And so all of us can be a source of blessing for everybody that we meet. And that this oil of gladness can flow through everybody to everyone we meet and encounter. The priest should be a translator of holiness. We should be holy as God is holy and have the fire of the Word of God in our hearts. Evil is only eradicated by holiness and mercy. Yes, the priest, the pastor, should be a translator of holiness and should be holy as God is holy and have the fire of the Word of God in his heart. But everybody else should too. The fire of the Word of God should reside in everybody's heart. And we all can be a translator of holiness in the witness that other people observe in us about God's holiness in us. And finally, the priest should be a bearer of joy. And the presenter used the example on Holy Thursday. The gospel says, we hear Jesus saying, that my joy may be in you and your joy may be complete. The priest should be a bearer of joy, inexhaustible joy. Of whom should we be afraid? Because we are joyful. Have you ever known a pastor, have you ever been a member of a parish where the priest was cantankerous, depressed, right, mean, as opposed to joyful? Have you? Too many at the 5:30 Mass and at the 8 a.m. this morning, and now here I see people going like this. Yes, I've been to a parish where the priest was not joyful. That's hard on the people. That's hard on you, isn't it? That's hard on, yeah, right. I'm sorry. I'm joyful. I'm happy. I'm joyful, so I hope you have joy. But the priest should, yes, joyful. So I'm joyful. I hope you can be joyful. But so these are, I didn't go through all of them. I left a couple out. But these are the 10 characteristics of what the pastor is or should be in the heart and mind of Pope Francis. But I believe that it can also apply to parishioners as well.